Welcome to the CyberNova podcast. My name is Jannes. I'll be your host for this session, and I'm joined here today by Steven from Fortinet. Steven, nice to meet you. Can you explain to our viewers in one or two sentences who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Steven de Mot. I'm a business development manager, OT security, Belgium and Luxembourg. That's a big mouthful. My job is basically to explain our OT-related offering to our customers. And to basically bring the OT cybersecurity message to the market as a first point of contact for our customers and also for our partners. And I try to also be a link with product management. So if I feel something in the market that's missing in our offering, I give that message to the company, basically.
Yeah. So you're the finger at the pulse to see what is going on. And
the boots on the ground on the Belgian market, exactly.
Okay, great. If you meet someone at a dinner party or maybe in a podcast who has no real idea what OT security is, how do you explain that?
If you want to keep it simple, I explain it as industrial cybersecurity. That's what people understand. Securing systems like power plants, like hospitals, like maybe rail infrastructure, manufacturing plants, these kind of thing. That's the basics. It's something tangible that people understand. But of course, there's a lot more to it. There's industrial IIoT. So there's a lot of sensors floating around in different industries. But if I want to keep it simple, I call it industrial cybersecurity.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe for my mind, like what's something that is connected or that is vulnerable that needs to be secured in my everyday life that I'm maybe not aware of? Something that people overlook?
I think everything's connected. The water you drink from the tap, it's been filtered by a process system that's connected to all the others. Your car, if it's electric, it's probably connected all the time. If you want to charge it, it needs to talk to some kind of system. I mean, I read an article this week about an attack last week in the US, and it was a company making breathalyzers. So if you have been drinking too much and you have a machine in your car, you need to blow in it before your car starts. That company got ransomware, so the central corporate company, and all of the cars were stopped. So you couldn't start your car.
So the steering lock breathalyzers, the one that like you get installed, and so it was basically. For regular people, for individuals, could not use their car because the mother company got hacked.
Yes. Of course, initially because they drank too much.
Yeah.
But in second instance, exactly. Yeah,
oh, damn. Yeah. That's a very good example, actually, because maybe zooming in on you a little bit, I've been browsing around. I see that you have a 13-year career protecting massive cargo ships from cyber threats, and then you spent 2 years as a bicycle mechanic.
Yeah.
What happened there?
I saw in the opening video here at CyberNova today, I saw Reinvent Yourself. And it made me think of this exact thing here. Basically, I've been lucky enough to make my hobby into my profession for the third time in my career. So that's basically what happened. I've spent a lot of time indeed in the maritime sector, managing cybersecurity and many other things. And then I had enough, and then I did my other passion, which was bicycles. And now I'm back in the industry.
Okay, well, it actually sounds like a very comforting message that you can, keep reinventing yourself and that there's always something new around the horizon.
Definitely, if you haven't tried it, just try it, and if it will work out. That's my experience, at least.
That's a very comforting message. In 2017, the shipping giant Maersk was hit by a cyberattack. You were in the maritime industry at that time. Yeah. What was it like?
I remember the day vividly. It was on a Saturday morning that the news got out, and my son was really young. I know I was awake at 5 o'clock because of my young son, and I saw the news. So, it was a day full of panic, basically. It was are we infected as well? We had some links to Maersk at that time, so could there be something interacting? There was so much going on in the industry that day and the week after because it wasn't clear exactly what happened. And of course, the year after, there was a lot of awareness in the industry as well. People really woke up and realized that something needs to be done and that you need to have the budget. So for me in IT security, it was nice to have a bit more, to make it easier, the message to explain why you need to do it.
The problem was very tangible then. You didn't have to convince people that there was a problem.
No.
You could come with a solution.
Exactly. It was a stressful time, but in the end, I think the result for the industry as a whole, it has been positive.
I can imagine. Maybe like in a parallel way, there's a fascinating tension in the world right now. On the one hand, we're digitizing and connecting everything, but on the other hand, it makes everything more vulnerable to threats. As you say, even my water is being connected somehow. How do you navigate that tension, and where do you emphasize the efforts that have to be taken?
Well, that's always been the case. There's always been new technologies, new things that emerge, and companies want to implement it because they want to keep their competitive advantage. So if you treat IT correctly, in my opinion, and OT for that matter, you've always wanted to implement new technology to keep ahead of your competition. But you need to do it in a secure way. And the way you do that is by analyzing the risk that this new technology brings. Is it going to, stop human checks from happening by automating something? If you have a new risk, you need to think about how it affects what you're doing in terms of protective layers, and then make sure that you have the correct measures in place. It's always a risk story, in my opinion. You can't tell your CEO to say, stop, we're not going to do that. It's too dangerous. That won't last for very long, the conducting it in that.
It's like almost makes me think that with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
Maybe not a quote to drag in here, but that's like you have to balance it out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, interesting. You've mentioned before that one of the biggest weak points isn't the technology itself, but the external suppliers. Like the contractors log in remotely to fix machines and stuff. Is human trust then still the biggest loophole in all the nets you're trying to weave?
Human trust, yes. I think human nature as well. I think one of the things is that you can make systems very secure by making them very rigid and very complex and very hard to use for the people who need to use it day by day. But if you do that, they will naturally want to circumvent your systems.
Yeah.
So part of what I think is if you want to make security really work well, you need to implement it in a feasible process, and you need to make sure that people are happy in their day-to-day job by doing it correctly. And indeed, the external suppliers story, it's an extension of that. If you need people connecting into your systems and you make it very complex and they need to jump through hoops to do it, somebody will put a 4G router somewhere and they will just bypass the whole thing. So that's really what we also at Fortinet try to avoid. We have systems that can actually streamline these remote connections and do it in a secure way, but still easy.
So be pragmatic in your approach. Make sure that people can actually follow it or are inclined to follow it, and don't make it so hard that they're from the start like, you know what, I'll find another way. Because
that's human nature.
Yes. Okay. You said like OT is basically industrial security. I know that a lot of power plants or very old industries running on computer systems that are quite outdated and literally cannot be updated while they're running. How do you protect that?
There's several ways. I think the first way is if it's really old, disconnect it. Make sure you can't connect it to anything. But I think that's the reality. You need, if you have I talked about risk earlier. This is a massive risk, this kind of thing. So if you have a high risk, you need a higher countermeasure for that risk. So that's basically what you can do. It's building things around it, compensating controls, we call that. So extra protective layers for the systems that are more vulnerable. But indeed, it's the reality that you can't just throw things out after 10 years in an OT environment. It's not always possible. So,
Okay. In Fortinet's latest reports, it shows that maybe for the first time, like the good guys are winning, if I can say it that way, that there have been more than half of the organizations who reported 0 intrusions last year. How can you explain how that happened? Are we getting smarter? Is it getting better?
I think a bit of both. Yeah, we are getting smarter. We are getting better. And if I look back I started at Fortinet 3 years ago, and I started talking about OT security with customers, with partners. The maturity was very low. I needed to explain what it was, why you should be doing it. And now you really feel that companies have picked up and they have implemented their first set of measures. You can really see that. They see that there's a problem. They want to solve it. They do the initial steps like segmentation, visibility, the risk management. Typically, many companies have done that part, and they are now moving into the more advanced security solutions. That's where I see the current market maturity. So I think that's part of why we see less intrusions. And the other part is maybe the definition, because what you're quoting is a survey, I think, that we did in the market. Again, it's human nature. What is an incident? Is it a phishing mail that comes in, or is it the whole plant was down? So that's always a bit.
Of course, there's some room for interpretation. What do you report? What gets overlooked?
Yeah. But we do see incidents in the market. I think only last year you saw a brewery, a coffee burning, or what you call it, not a brewery for coffee, but
the burning.
You know what? Roasting company going down in the same week because of a cyber incident. So incidents are still very real, but maturity is definitely rising.
Okay, so it's partly that the market is getting more evolved and getting ahead, but maybe also a bit of reporting and a bit of.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's good. That's good, especially the fact that we're getting more mature and more aware of that it is a vulnerability that we have to, apprehend. In your 20 years in this space, maybe, roughly, more or less. Being involved. Okay, no, that's not what I'm aiming to do. I'm just stating that you've been around for a while and you've seen some things.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what was like the most stressful situation, the most impactful day that you had. Walk me through it.
There's a couple.
There's a couple.
Let me think. I think there's two that pop in my mind. One was maybe not a real cybersecurity incident, but I was on a ship in the Middle East somewhere where the current situation is happening now in that region. It was Doha, I believe, where I was on a ship by myself fixing a system that was down. And the only way to look things up, when you have a problem, you quickly Google it and somebody answers. I had 1 bar on my BlackBerry every 2 hours. So that was my connection to the outside world at that point. And that's when you realize, it's I have a ship here. If I can't fix it, then it's going to cost us $50,000 because it's a day late, for example. That was one of the very stressful situations.
Okay.
But when I think at real security incidents, I've had a couple of incidents. I'm not sure how into detail I can go about what happened. But definitely when you have an incident, you have to make so many decisions. You need to think, what else is infected? I can see this happening now, but is everything infected? Should I pull the plug on everything and shut down the whole company? How can I know this? Who do I need to contact? Do I need to talk to management first? Do I need to talk to my auditors? What kind of measures do I need to take? There's so many decisions. And the main takeaway that I had there is, if you haven't practiced this in advance, it's impossible for an IT team to do this just without practice. So that was my main takeaway. From then on, we did tabletop exercises. We tried to, of course, it's not the same stress levels as with a real incident,
imagine.
but it's a concept that has existed in safety, in the physical counterpart of security. The concept has existed for a long time, and I think it also definitely needs to be implemented.
All right. So make sure that people at least have some idea of how to approach a problem, and maybe have the feeling that they've done this before.
And it's basically, these days it's doing it by the book. In NIST 2, it says it explicitly. You need to have procedures. You need to have a playbook to really make those decisions ahead of time. Basically, that's the time you gain and the stress levels that you can drop. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. You've been inside of like massive cargo ships and factories and power plants and whatnot. If you had to boil down your experience, your philosophy on how to protect those things, how would you summarize that?
For me, it starts with the important things. Don't waste your time on maybe quick fixes that feel like you're doing something, but it doesn't provide the risk reduction that you really should be doing. Invest in the important things. I think that's definitely something that you need to be doing. And it's, again, as I said, risk is always it's always the red line through all this story. You need to think of your risk first and protect the most critical things in your environment. That's how I see it.
Okay. And are there critical things that you're generally worried about, vulnerabilities that are there that keep you awake at night, that are not that easy to get ahead of?
I must say, since I'm on this side, since I'm at the vendor side, there's less keeping me awake than when I was really responsible for a whole company, basically. That's the nice thing of being on this side of the story. So keeping awake, I wouldn't say, but you do realize that vulnerabilities are always there. I mean, you can have everything in your environment patched and protected, but tomorrow something new may arise. So you can't be paralyzed by fear. You need to realize that things will happen and you need to be prepared to do what you need to do, to basically do your job as a security engineer when something new arrives.
Okay. Maybe on that note, you spend a lot of time being, worried, prepared, thinking ahead. How do you deconnect? How do you wind down? Do you have like a very dumb home with no smart solutions, whatever, or a Nokia phone from the early 2000s, or what's your
3210 brick? No, I don't have one of those.
Okay.
No. But I do have a dumb home, but that's more because it still needs to be renovated. But,
okay.
I am a bit paranoid at some things, though. I would say the remote control for your garage door, the keys to my car, I keep them in a metal box in the hallway with a closed lid always.
Like aluminum blocking that people can't.
Exactly.
I've heard that you can like pick up the signal and clone it. And is it a real thing? Is it something I should be worried about?
I think I gave the answer in the previous question. Maybe it's not a real thing today, but the vulnerability may exist tomorrow, and I'd rather already have my preventative measures in place before it arrives.
Okay, then that's your professional mindset at work, I think. Okay, maybe I should look towards similar solutions myself.
Unfortunately, we don't sell metal boxes at Fortinet. Yeah, we do, but it might be too expensive just to use as a metal box.
Not for consumers. Okay, maybe going back to your time as a bicycle mechanic, are there parallels on how to approach a broken bicycle versus a broken safety measure or a broken security protocol at a company?
That's a first, that question. Yes, I think there might be actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you fix a bicycle, you start with the brakes. Because if that fails, the rider dies, maybe, or injures himself.
Yeah, it's very, yeah.
And I think you can really link that to what I said earlier. It's the important things first. Criticality, safety systems, that's where you start. I mean, you don't touch safety systems, you don't start, I don't know, putting new fancy tires on a bike, that if it's not necessarily, you start with the brakes and you start with, I don't know, not having major cracks in your frame or whatever. I'm thinking, it's a hard one, but start with your critical things. Yeah, that maps. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you're working in business development, and
Yeah.
you said that you're kind of like the bridge between product and the market. So you're surrounded by a lot of technicality, jargon, people who are very deep into their field.
Yeah.
If someone's interested in cybersecurity and wants to maybe approach it from the outside, where would they have to start to kind of get to know the industry, the field, and understand what we're saying or other people are saying here?
For me, there is a lot of jargon, yes. You can get very technical. But what I personally like about cybersecurity, be it for IT or for OT, is that you really need to understand the company to do proper security. You need to understand processes. You need to basically be a generalist. You need to understand how a company works, how other types of systems work, and you need to understand a bit about applications, a bit about networking, a bit about, I don't know, the cloud infrastructure, a bit, all of the different aspects, you need to grasp them a little bit. So if you're scared of going too deep, and I understand because AI is taking over certain technical depth roles, for me, there's an advantage in just being a generalist, understanding business and processes and different types of, well, software systems, basically, and bring it all together in the end. And that's what I also see people working in security. They are typically mature people. You don't start as a cybersecurity, a CISO when you're 21 years old. That's not possible. So build on all of your capabilities, I would say.
Okay. Would you then say that that's an advantage you have, given that you've seen many different spaces and even worked as a mechanic?
I think indeed I speak from my own experience, yes, and that's how I got here. It's by knowing a little bit about a lot of things and putting it all together and being able to also talk to management people and to legal because they own the risk in a company typically. So yeah, you need to have a bit of everything. Yeah.
Okay. If you can make one thing clear to any CEO here or any person like listening about their OT security, if it's applicable to them, what would you tell them to go fix or to pay attention to or be aware of?
Yeah. I think to be aware of, to start with your last question, is there is interconnection between the two worlds. I heard a lot in the past, we have a gap between them, an air gap or whatever, and so they are not connected, so I don't need to secure it. That's basically not the case anymore. Accept the reality. As a CEO, don't try to, I would say, to put the problem aside and say,
away,
no, it's not a real problem. It is a real problem. That's one thing.
That's step one.
That's step one. And step two is do the basics. It's, again, do a risk assessment. It's do simple countermeasures like network segmentation. It's always one of the first steps. Make sure that there is correct segmentation between the two worlds and make sure that you know what you have. So make sure that you understand what you have as a company and how it all interoperates. And then you can start thinking about advanced technologies, sandbox, deception technology. I'm dropping a lot of buzzwords. I'm sorry about the jargon, but that's in my opinion, that's step two. Again, do your get your basics right, and only then move up.
Okay, and can I conclude from that doing the basics is already a large, then you're already quite safe, let's say, or you can be sure that you're already.
It gives you a certain level of security, but you do need to do them. If
Okay.
you look at NIS2 and you're an essential company, you do need to do all of the advanced stuff as well. But it doesn't make sense to do them first and
No.
not
Okay.
have your basics right. That doesn't
Okay.
make sense.
Okay. So building from a stable foundation, getting
Yes.
your basics right is very, very important.
That's the same conversation we had in the beginning. If you have a CEO that wants to move quickly to the market with his product, and you skip a couple of steps by not building in cybersecurity, it will come back to bite you in a year because you need to reverse the whole process and start over. And it's way more expensive than doing it from the beginning.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for the conversation. I actually learned a lot, so I hope that people watching will have the same feeling.
Nice to hear. Yeah.
Enjoy CyberNova, enjoy the talks, enjoy the networking, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.